I want to talk a little bit about this song, De Los Angeles, written by Dale MO. The first thing that I do, and that is maybe no surprise, is that I want to have this song, and I want to listen to this song as much as possible. And the more often I can listen to a song and I get not bored about it, the more likely I take over something like that. Because you have to make certain that maybe after 3 months of listening to this song, you get not bored or upset, because you would color that in your editing or wherever. You are not really into it anymore. It's very important that you like the song. It's maybe not that you say, wow, I can't live without that song, but it should be at least in the middle field, not in the boring field. And you have to predict where you will be with the song in a certain amount of time. So how to go from there? If the song is accepted and you agree to do it, and of course, it's very important to say from the start, I want to do this, but I do it in the way I want to do it. Because everyone has its own little ideas, and I track here a little bit from my architecture time into it, because the clients have always the idea that they are all architects, and of course, they are not. I have done it over 2 decades, I can't say that with certainty. And musicians are musicians. They have, of course, taste, otherwise they wouldn't get the music straight, but they are not a visual artist. And even if they have an opinion, and even if they have ideas, the visual part is more at home at your place. And so you have to make certain that you have the right to say, this is how it has to be, and I want to have it, because anything else falls apart. You know that maybe from editing. You can't just edit here a little bit and expect that on the end the same outcome is there. So that is something very, very important to me. I need to like the song, and I need to have the trust of the band. Otherwise, I'm not interested in it. Anyone can do music videos, that's not really a problem, but you want to do a good job and you need a good base for that. After that, I need, of course, to know the band. And just to go a little bit ahead in the story, the band itself was the most and the biggest problem in the whole thing. Not that anyone made me trouble, but the bass was missing. And Denise here in the picture was originally not part of the band at all. And the bass guy had no intention for me to just give me a half hour at least to film some details or so. And the idea from the start was we film all concerts. So I try to get the concerts maybe in similar situations. One time for the coverage, then for the details, then maybe for some part shots where only 2 people are there, and then maybe just some very close-ups from the faces while singing. And that was the idea, because these people live on a stage, and I have learned tons of that to know that I have to increase my director ability to motivate these people. When you take a look here to these faces, that's my mistake, clearly. Because these people are so focused now to play in tune with the music that they hear. It's not live, of course not, because you want to have the best sound, so you take the track from the CD. And these people are normally used to play live. So they are totally focused on being in sync. And then I thought, okay, it's maybe easier, especially for the cello, to sit down. These people are always stand when they play music. So I cut it into their natural behavior a lot. All my mistakes, all things that I have to learn, and I give that to you here, of course. And I thought I know musicians very well, because when I was 13, I started to make light show for these guys, but always live. And so I never hit the ground with filming them and directing them and tell these people who stand on the stage over 3 decades partly what to do. I thought they are pros. They will do whatever they think is the best. I was wrong. Okay, so we figured that out on the run, as you might see when the party is going on. But we had to ask Denise to jump in for the filming, and of course, I had my little requirements when we started talking about. For example, I found this place here as the best for the filming. It has an LA feeling to it, and the problem was, of course, always when you want to film in LA, you need a permission or you know the owner, and the owner was known by me, so that was not a problem. And I wanted to make certain that this area here stays over the whole time exactly in the same way, that no gardeners come and cut everything down because it's no time to do that or so. And that was based on the idea that, first of all, I wanted to film Dale alone. And then a couple of weeks later, I wanted to film the whole band. And I have done this here with a red camera. I was happy that I had this camera and not anything else, because even against my will, there was a white shallow in the whole thing. That was really not my wish. And I thought I had made my point clear that we don't want to have green, we don't want to have black, and we don't want to have white in the picture, because we have dark tones in the background and greens, and of course some tiny little highlights here. And white is a big problem, because any light that goes on white is always very close to be clipped. So to protect the highlights here, or the white itself, here you can see a little bit sun even, you have to crash the blacks. And that is not really fun, because in the moment you have to ignore the blacks, they turn out to be just a dark little something. They don't have enough light, because you have to close the lens, or you put some NDs more in front of the lens. With the red, I was close to go to HDRX to have 18.5 stops at least. But I figured out we got a light situation that allowed me to have the white shallow in the picture and dark stuff without having everything to 000 here while filming. And that is the beauty of the red. It has a huge dynamic. The light, by the way, was done in a way that I had reflectors on the floor. So I had no big shadows here under the chin or under the nose. And I had a ladder over the whole set with broomsticks and a huge fabric to get warm and soft light on these guys, because it was bright sunny there. And it was 100-degree Fahrenheit during the filming. So they were sitting half in shadow. I was in the middle of the sun, and I needed pretty much a half gallon per hour to survive all of that. Anyway, I went a little bit ahead with all the explanations. So the band was finally there. I had 2 times 90 minutes to film all these guys based on several dependencies. And then I had a concept. The guys were not really available to go with me over weeks to downtown or to many areas in LA where I wanted to film. And of course, I had no permission to film all over in LA, and I avoided to use the tourist shots, of course, because I said, that's so boring, and to put exactly what everyone knows already from LA in it. That's so stereotyped. That's just not the way I want to work. So I went to downtown LA and photographed a lot of buildings. I think I came home with a little bit over 30 gigabytes of stuff. And the idea was here that we have 3 different layers in the whole song. That happens when you listen to the song a lot and when you read the lyrics also. So the 3 layers are pretty much, the band is in LA, but they are all over the place in the billboards. So they are inside of this media city, because LA is certainly a media city. So the billboards are certainly something typical there. And the city itself is something very, very eclectic. So you have tons of different architecture styles, and I didn't want to show the old and nice stuff or the rotten old theaters, and so that was all a little bit too cliche to me. I wanted to have the natural LA how I know it, downtown LA, and a little bit more. So downtown LA and more of LA was, of course, then one layer. The band was the middle layer. And then I try to find here an image where we have here LA again. And then we go here into the song. For example, here I film with a Steadicam in a Mission, also here in LA. And that's a very old one. And I go here just one time along. So, and I blend this in. This is the inner picture or the inner layer of the song from Dale. And so we jump back and forth from LA into the band in LA, and then here on the beach, for example. That was for me a picture that was fitting very well to the two Native American areas in the mountains and on the beach. It's not really the mountains here, but it was a nice symbol for that. And so on and so on. Tons of stuff here, but always 3 layers, where I go a little bit into the inside, then out of it, and here is the party. And I think it was Dani's idea, and that's a good idea finally to have, to listen to these people when they say, hey, let's have a party mood here. And of course, it's completely out of sync, because it was really done, I think, in 10 minutes or so. Just 10 times the 1 minute. Without concept, just do, and I try to work around the sound, and it was all out of sync because they made so much noise that they couldn't hear anymore the monitor sound. Huge chaos, but I think it went well on the end. And so this is the middle part, and let's hop for a moment to an PDF. So this would be here normally step number 3, after listening, after agreeing to everything, and then going into the song. And the simple idea is normally that I try to figure out how is the structure, and it's 3 parts. I don't know, it's maybe a standard here in LA or all over the place. It starts here always with a cello part, then Dale sings, and then the choir comes, interruption, cello part, Dale sings, the choir part, and then the party, and then it goes again in the same way. So we have pretty much 3 blocks, and my idea was first to have among all of these blocks always a transition with the billboards. So I didn't want to have a real cutting for these blocks. I wanted to have a more transition, and to go from one into the next billboard was my transition. And after I have watched all this stuff, I changed my mind, of course, as usual, because when you have a better idea, then you do that. And when it fits a little bit better, then that might be maybe exactly what you have to do. Whatever. With all these changes came, of course, then also the need to change the timing, because I had prepared everything with a certain amount of time, and then I needed everything a little bit longer. And I needed a little longer because it was placed on a different position. Back to the video. To have an idea or a concept is, of course, always a good starting point, but I wouldn't really stick to anything. And that has a little bit to do that sometimes on the way, the longer you work, the more you get into it, the more you find maybe the inner logic of something, and then you just go with the flow, so to say. You don't say, this is my idea and want to pressure this through the whole thing, because sometimes one idea gives the next, and then you have to change maybe the one or the other detail in the whole thing. And what I wanted to have here was, of course, this non-tangible, this virtual feeling of the band, and that it is all over in LA, and that it is connected. We have really no idea where we are finally, where the band is. Is it only in a monitor, or where is the background coming from? And to get all of this done was, of course, only possible that I could use Cinema 4D with camera mapping, and created my own transition, my own footage here, for example, with the cows. This is all camera mapping, and allowed me to produce material that maybe this shot here would be only possible maybe with a helicopter when I want to be on that high here, because I have cheated a little bit with the camera. It's much higher than I was while shooting this image here. And so to have the option to create material and change it along the 4 different freedoms that we have with camera projection and camera mapping. That was, of course, very helpful. On the end, it was a longer story, of course, and we will go through some steps here along Cinema 4D, After Effects Premiere, and how to deliver this all on, and so on. I was very happy to have the option to do a lot of stuff just inside of Cinema 4D because I was completely independent from anything. No permission to film anywhere, and I could use here just photos that I've shot, and with a little DSLR, no one really bothers you. Hey, do you have a permission? Do you have an insurance? And you can't put your tripod here, blah, blah, blah. And most of these shots here, this is all done without a tripod even. It's just handheld. All in HDRI, and normally I say don't shoot HDRI without a tripod. But most of the time I was with one exposure already where I wanted to be. And it was just fantastic. I tried to find always these shadow places so the billboards had a little bit more contrast to the background. If I had used here always bright sunlight, and this year's late afternoon, it's already a little bit dim, then these monitors would have been so bright to stand out that it would have been not very nice. And of course, to have the reflections here from sunny sides in the windows wouldn't be so effective when everything would have been so sunny here. So all a little bit with some stuff in mind as well here, shadow sides. And you get already my idea here. That is maybe not so obviously here, but we are close to the end. You can see here, it's not really standing out. When I go then here to this place, this is dark and there's a nice contrast finally. Whatever. Have a look to the whole song on YouTube, because we have here only 10 frames per second in the tutorials and that's not really fun to play the whole song. I hope I could give you a little bit of an in-depth view what my process here was to go along with my standard steps. And when I have the chance to go again into a making of with my next music video, there I have longer storyboard prepared, because there we film a little bit more in detail. And Cinema 4D is of course part of the game, and it's always a little bit different. You have to create your own stuff always, and your own ideas, your own logic, and so on. Okay, I think that is a good starting point. Let's go a little bit into the applications to see how things were done. See you in the next one. Thanks for listening.